Hello friend, welcome back to my channel. This is AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate exam PDF. So this is not my, and I give a disclaimer, this is from in 28 minutes. These are the good websites. You can go for them, search in the Google, and you can see multiple, good tutorials prepared by them. And so let's try to review this PDF and what is in store. Okay. Yeah, right. So AWS 200 plus services, exam expect knowledge of 40 plus services, exam test your decision making abilities. Which services do you choose in which situation? How do you trade off between resilience, performance, and cost while not compromising on security and operational excellence? This course is designed to help you make tough choices. Or these tough choices, our goal enable you to architect amazing solution in AWS. So you have an Amazon S3 for storage, EC2 for computing, EBS is elastic. EBS is basically like the storage. I'm not able to recall. It's Amazon EBS is like elastic. BS for storage and B is for somewhat. I'm not able to recall. You attach it to the EC2 and and it works as a file system. ELB is elastic load balancing. ECS is elastic container services. Okay. Now, so, how do you put your best foot forward? Challenging certification expects you to understand, and remember a number of services. As time passes, humans forget things. How do you improve your chances of remembering things? Active learning, think and make notes, review the presentation every once in a while. Our approach video with presentation and demos, two kinds of quizzes to reinforce concepts, text quizzes, traditional text quiz, video quizzes, discuss the question and the solution in a video, practice test at the end of the course. Recommended take your time, do not hesitate to replay videos, have fun. AWS getting started before the cloud. Consider an consider online shopping application, peak usage during holidays and weekends, less load during rest of the day. A startup suddenly becomes popular. How does it handle the sudden increase in load? Enterprise procured bought infrastructure for peak load. Startups procured infrastructure assuming they would be successful. So before the cloud challenges, low infrastructure utilization needs ahead of time planning, high cost of procuring infrastructure, dedicated infrastructure maintenance team. Silver lining in the cloud. How about provisioning resources when you want them and releasing them back when you do not want them? On demand resource provisioning advantage. Lower costs, no upfront planning needed. Avoid undifferentiated heavy lifting challenges. Challenge building cloud enabled applications. Amazon Web Services, leading cloud service provider, provides most 200 plus services, reliable, secure, and cost effective. The entire course is all about AWS. You will learn it as we go further. Best part to learn AWS: Amazon S3 EC2, Amazon EBS, ELB, ECS. Cloud applications make use of multiple AWS services. There is no single path to learn these services independently. However, we have worked out a simple path. The first step is like you have to set up an AWS account. You create an AWS account, set up an IAM user, regions and zone. Imagine that your application is deployed in a data center in London. What would be the challenge? Challenge 1: slow access for users from other parts of the world, high latency. Challenge 2: what if the data center crashes? Your applications goes down, low availability. Multiple data center. Let's add in one more data center in London. So you have a London region corporate data center 1, corporate data center 2. What would be the challenges? Challenge 1: slow access for user from other parts of the world. Challenge 2: solve. What if one data center crashes? Your application is still available from the other data center. Challenge 3: what if entire region of London is available? Your application goes down. Multiple regions. Let's add a new region, Mumbai. What would be the challenge? Challenge 1: partially solved, slow access for user from other parts of the world. You can solve this by adding deployments for your application in other regions. Challenge 2: solve. What if the data center crashes? Your application is still live from the other data center. Challenge 3: solve. What if the entire region of London is unavailable? Your application is served from Mumbai. Regions. Imagine setting up your data center in different regions around the world. Would that be the easy? AWS provides 20 plus regions around the world, expanding every year. Regions advantage: high availability, Low latency, adhere to government regulations. Reason: choose the right reason based on where are your user located, where is your data located, regulatory and security compliance needs. AWS reasons can be region or global. Availability zones: isolated locations in the region. Each AWS region has at least two availability zones. Increase availability of application in the same region. Region and availability zones example: new regions and availability zones are constantly added. Region code: US East 1, US East North Virginia, availability zone 6. So what it is? You have you have one region in North Virginia. You have a 6 availability zones. It means you have a 6 data center, and which the region code is US East 1. You have a region in Europe, London. You have 3 data centers in here, and the region code is US 2. You have an Asia Pacific, Mumbai. You have a 3 availability zone, and the region code is Apps South 1. EC2 fundamentals. EC2 stands for Elastic Compute Cloud. In corporate data center, applications are deployed to physical servers. Where do you deploy your application in the cloud? Rent virtual servers, EC2 instances, virtual servers in AWS built by second. EC2 service: provision EC2 instances or virtual servers. Okay. EC2 features: EC2 instances, ELB, Amazon EBS. Create and manage lifecycle of EC2 instances. Load balancing and auto scaling for multiple EC2 instances. Attach storage and network storage to your EC2 instances. Manage network connectivity for an EC2 instance. Our goal: set up EC2 instances as HTTP server. Distribute load with load balancer. EC2 hands-on. Let's create a few EC2 instances and play with them. Let's check it out. The life cycle of EC2 instances. Let's use EC2 instance connect to SSH into EC2 instance. EC2 instance types: optimize combination of compute, memory, disk and networking for specific workloads. 270 plus instances across 40 plus instance types for different workload. T2.micro. T is like instance family, 2 is second generation, improvement with each generation. Micro in size: nano, micro, small, medium, large, extra large. Remember, as size increases, compute, CPU, GPU, memory and network capability increase proportionally. EC2 instance metadata service and dynamic data. Instance metadata service: get details about EC2 instance from inside an EC2 instance. AMI ID, storage devices, DNS host name, instance ID, instance type, security group, IP address, etc. URL: http 169.254.169.254. Latest metadata. URL path: network, AMI ID, hostname, local IV4, public hostname, public IV4, security groups, placement, availability zone. Dynamic data service: get dynamic information about EC2 instance. URL: http 169.254.169.254. Latest dynamic example: http 169.254.169.254. latest dynamic instant identity document. EC2 hands-on: setting up a HTTP server. You connect to your EC2, put sudo su yum update -y, yum install httpd -y, systemctl start httpd, systemctl enable http. So, and then you can put in index.html, getting started with AWS, welcome to in 28 minutes, who am I, hostname and all. Security groups: user, security group, EC2 instance. Virtual firewall to control incoming and outgoing traffic to and from AWS resources. EC2 instances, database, etc. Provides additional layer of security. Defense in depth. Security group rules. Okay. Inbound rule: HTTP protocol TCP, port range is 80, source 0, description optional. HTTP TCP, port range 80, source : //0. HTTPS TCP, port range 443. 183.82.136.27/32. Security groups are default deny. If there are no rules configured, no outbound and inbound traffic is allowed. You can specify allow rules only. You can configure separate rules for inbound and outbound traffic. You can assign multiple up to 5 security groups for your EC2 instance. Okay. You can add and delete security groups to EC2 instance at any time. Changes are immediately effective. Traffic not explicitly allowed by security will not reach the EC2 instance. Security groups are stateful. If an outgoing request is allowed, the incoming response for it is automatically allowed. If an incoming request is allowed, and outgoing response for it is automatically allowed. Okay. What if there are no security group rules configured for inbound and outbound? Default denied. No traffic is allowed in and out of EC2 instance. Can I change security groups at runtime? Yes. Changes are immediately effective. EC2 IP addresses. Public IP addresses are internet addressable. Private IP addresses are internal to a corporate network. You cannot have two resources with same public IP address. However, two different corporate networks can have a resources with the same private IP address. All EC2 instances are assigned private IP address. Creation of public IP address can be enabled for EC2 instances in public subnet. Remember, when you stop an EC2 instance, public IP address is lost. EC2 public and okay. Elastic IP address scenario. How do you get a constant public IP address for a EC2 instance? Quick and dirty way is to use an elastic IP. Okay. So if you use an elastic IP, you can get a constant public IP address. Else, the problem is like your yes, when you switch off your public IP address, your EC2 instance, your public IP address gets lost. Elastic IP address, remember, elastic IP can be switched to another EC2 instance within the same region. Elastic IP remains attached even if you stop the instance. You have to manually detach it. You are charged for an elastic IP when you are not using it. Make sure that you explicitly release an elastic IP when you are not using it. You will be charged for elastic IP when elastic IP is not associated with an EC2 instance or EC2 instances with applications stopped. How do we reduce the number of steps in creating an EC2 instance and setting up an HTTP server? Let's explore few user data launch template AMI. Bootstrapping with user data yum update -y yum install -y httpd systemctl start httpd systemctl enable http curl -s http 169.254.169.254 latest dynamic instant identity document var www html index to bootstrapping install OS patches or software and instance launch. In EC2 you can configure user data to bootstrap, look up user data and using user data. Why do you need to specify all the EC2 instance details, AMID, instance type, and network every time you launch an instance? How about creating a launch template? Allow you to launch spot instance and spot fleet as well. Reducing launch time with customized AMI. EC2 instance goes to EC2 AMI, EC2 instances. Installing OS patches and software using user data at launch of a EC2 instance increases boot up time. How about creating a customized AMI with OS patches and software pre-install, hardening an image, customize EC2 image to your corporate security standards, prefer using customized AMI to user data. Okay, then create a customized AMI using the launch template. Amazon machine image. What operating system and what software do you want on the instance? 3 AMI sources provided by AWS. AWS Marketplace, online store for customized AMI, per hour billing, customized AMI created by you. So what are the things you need to remember for EC2 image, machine image? AMI contains root volume block storage, OS and applications, block device mapping for non-root volumes. You can configure launch permissions on an AMI. Who can use the AMI? You can share your AMIs with other AWS accounts. AMIs are stored in Amazon S3. Best practice backup up to date AMI in multiple regions, critical for disaster recovery. EC2 security key pairs. EC2 uses public key cryptography for protecting login credential. Key pair, public key and private key. Public key is stored in EC2 instance. Private key is stored by customer. Connecting to EC2 instances, troubleshooting. You need to have the private key to you. Change permission to 0400 chmod 400 path my key pair.pam. Default permissions on private key 07777. Windows instance. In addition to private key, you need admin password at launch. Random admin password is generated and encrypted using public key. Decrypt the password using the private key and use it to log in via RDP. Security groups should allow inbound SSH or RDP access. Port 22 Linux EC2 instance. Port 3389 RDP. So port number 20 is for SSH and port number 3389 is for RDP. Connect to your connect to your instance using its public DNS ec2.computeamazon.com. Important EC2 scenarios. Quick review. Scenario: you want to identify all instances belonging to a project, to an environment, or to a specific billing type. Solution: add tags, project A, environment dev. You want to change instance type. Stop the instance, use change instance type to change and restart. You don't want an EC2 instance to be automatically terminated. Turn on termination protection. EC2 termination protection is not effective for auto scaling group, B spot, or C OS shutdown. You want to update the EC2 instance to a new AMI updated with latest, relaunch a new instance with an updated AMI, create EC2 instance based on on-premises virtually, use VM export image, you are responsible for license. Change security group on EC2 instance. Assign at launch or runtime. Security group changes are immediately effective. You get a timeout while accessing an EC2 instance. Check your security group configuration. You are installing a lot of software using user data, slowing down instance. How do you make it faster? Create an AMI from the EC2 instance and use it for launching new instances. I have stopped my EC2 instance. Will I be billed for it? Zero charge for stopped instance. If you have a storage that, you have to pay for storage. Quick review. AMI. What operating system and what software do you want on the instance? Reduce boot time and improve security by creating customized hardened AMIs. Region specific. Backup AMIs in multiple regions. You can share AMIs with other AWS accounts. EC2 instance types. Optimize combination of compute, memory, disk, and networking for specific workload. Security groups. Virtual firewall to control incoming and outgoing traffic to from AWS resource, EC2 instances, database, etc. Default deny, separate allow rules for inbound and outbound traffic, stateful and immediately effective. Key pairs, public key cryptography. Key pairs used to protect your EC2 instances. You need private key with right permissions. chmod 400 to connect to your EC2 instance. Windows EC2 instance only. You need admin password. Security groups should allow SSH or RDP3389. Quick review. Instance metadata service. Get detail about EC2 instance from inside an EC2 instance. User data used for bootstrapping, install OS patches or software when EC2 instance is launched. Elastic IP address, static public IP address for EC2 instance. Launch templates, pre-configured templates, AMI, ID, instance type, and network settings, simplifying the creation of EC2 instances. Next, we go to the load balancing. So what is the use of load balancing? Elastic Load Balancer. This is a service from AWS. It distributes traffic across EC2 instance in one or more availability zones in the single regions. That is the important thing. So it distributes traffic across EC2 instances in one or more availability zone in a single region. So if you have a 2 data center in London, it will distribute the traffic in the London itself in one region, not in different. Okay. So if you see here, Elastic Load Balancer. Okay. Managed service. AWS ensures that it is highly available, auto scales to handle huge loads. Load balancer can be public or private. Health check, route traffic for healthy instances. HTTP versus HTTPS versus TCP versus TLS versus UDP. Okay. So computers use protocol to communicate multiple layers and multiple protocols. Network layer transfer bits and bytes. Transport layer are the bits and bytes transferred properly. Application layer make REST API calls and send emails. Remember, each layer makes use of the layers beneath it. Remember, most applications talk at application layer, but some high application talk at transport layer, directly high performance. So HTTP, HTTPS, SMTP is application layer 7. TCP, TLS, and UDP is transport layer 4. Network layer is IP. Network layer, IP, Internet Protocol, transfer bytes, unreliable. Transport layer, TCP, transmission control, reliability, performance. TLS, transport layer, security. Secure TCP, UDP, user data game protocol, performance, reliability. Application layer, HTTP, hypertext transfer protocol, stateless request response cycle. HTTP, secure HTTP, SMTP, email transfer protocol, and lots of other. Most applications typically communicate at application layer. Web apps, REST API, HTTP, HTTPS, email servers, SMTP, file transfer, HTTP. All these applications use TCP or TLS at network layer. However, application needing high performance directly communicate at transport layer, gaming application and live video streaming use UDPs. Sacrifice reliability for performance. Objective understanding big picture. It's okay if you do not understand all details. Three types of load balancing: classic load balancing, layer 4 and layer 7, old generation supporting layer 4, TCP and TLS, and layer 7, HTTP, HTTPS protocol, not recommended by AWS. Application load balancer, new generation supporting HTTP and HTTP and advanced routing approach. Network load balancer, layer 4, new generation supporting TCP and TLS and UDP, very high performance use cases. Classic load balancer, older version of ELB, not recommended any for, supports TCP, SSL, TLS, HTTPS layer 4 and 7. Okay. Application load balancer, most popular and frequently used ELB in AWS, supports WebSockets and HTTP and HTTPS layer 7, supports all important load balancer features, scales automatically based on demand, can load balance between EC2 instance, containerized application, Amazon ECS, web applications using IP address, Lambda serverless. Load balancer security group best practices. Load balancer allows traffic from everywhere. Type HTTP, protocol TCP, port range 80, source 0.0.0/0. EC2 security group allow only traffic from load balancer security group. HTTP, TCP 80, source. Okay, the best practice is restrict allow traffic using security group. Listeners, each load balancer has one or more listener listening for connection request from the client. Each listener has a protocol, a port, and a set of rules to route request to target. So this is the listener ID. This is your security not applicable, certificate not applicable, rules is like forward to this, view and edit rules. Okay, and the port is 80. Multiple research, you can have a multiple listener listening for a different protocol or port. If the in the above example, HTTP request on port 80 are routed to the EC2 instance target group, HTTP request on port 443 are routed to port 80, HTTP request on 8080 get a fixed response, customized HTML. How to group instances that ALV has to distribute the load between. Create a target group. A target group can be a set of EC2 instances, a Lambda function, or a set of IP address. Target group configuration, sticky session, send all requests from one user to the same instance. Implemented using a cookie, supported by ALB and CLB. Okay. Load target group configuration, deregistration delay. How long should ELB wait before deregistering a target? Load balancer stops routing new requests to a target when you unregister it. What about requests that are already in progress with that target? This setting ensures that the load balancer gives in-flight request a chance to complete execution. 0 to 3600 seconds, default 300 seconds. Also called connection draining. Microservice architecture, multiple target groups. Microservice architecture have thousands of microservices, HTTP, WXYZ, microservice A and B. Should we create a multiple ALB? No. One ALB can support multiple microservices. Create separate targets for each microservice. Remember, classical load balancer does not support multiple target groups. Listener rule. How do you identify which request should be sent to which target group? Configure multiple listener rules for the same listener. Rules are executed in the order they are configured. Default rule is executed fast. Listener rules possibility based on path. In 28minutes.com, a target group A and in the target group B. Based on host a.in28minute.com to target group A and b.in28minute.com to target group B. Based on HTTP headers, authorization header and method, post get etc. Based on query strings, microservices target is equal to A / microservice target is equal to B. Based on IP address, all requests from a range of IP address to a target group A, others to target group B. Architectural summary. Load balancer, rule listener 1, rule listener, target group, health check, target group. Okay. Highly decoupled architecture. Load balancer can have a multiple listener, protocol plus port combinations. Each listener can have multiple rules, each routing to a target group based on a request content. A target can be a part of multiple target groups. Introducing auto scaling group. Target groups are configured with a static set of instances. How do you scale out and scale in automatically? Configure an auto scaling group. Auto scaling group responsibilities: maintain configured number of instances using periodic health check. If an instance goes down, ESG launches replacement instance. Auto scale to adjust to load, scaling and scale out based on auto scaling policies. ASG can launch on demand instances, spot instances, or both. Best practices use launch template. Minimum size, desired capacity, scale out as needed. Maximum sizing. And elastic load balancing can distribute load to active instances as ASG expands and contracts based on the load. Okay. Auto scaling components, launch configuration template, EC2 instance size, and AMI. Auto scaling group, a reference to launch configuration slash template, mean, max, and desired size of auto scaling group. EC2 health checks by default. Optionally enable ELB health checks. Auto scaling policies, when and how to skew scaling. Auto scaling group use cases. ESG, when to use, maintain current instance level at all times. Mean is equal to max is equal to desired is equal to constant. When an instance becomes unhealthy, it is replaced. Constant load. Scale manually. Change desired capacity as needed. You need complete control over scaling. Scale based on schedule. Schedule a date and time for scaling up and down. Batch programs with regular schedules. Scale based on demand. Dynamic plus automatic scaling. Create scaling policy. What to monitor and scaling action. What action? Unpredictable load. Dynamic scaling policy type. Scaling policy. Target tracking scaling. Maintain CPU utilization at 70%. Modify current capacity based on a target value for a specific matrix. Simple scaling plus 5 if CPU utilization is greater than 80%. Waits for cooldown period before triggering additional actions. -3 if CPU utilization less than 60%. Step scaling. +1 if CPU utilization between 70% and 80%. +3 if CPU utilization between 80% and 100%. Similar setting for scale. Warm up time can be configured for scaling policies. Background CW alarm, auto scaling, EC2 scaling. EC2 instances, two parts. Cloud watch alarm is CPU utilization greater than 80% or less than 60%. Scaling action +5 EC2 instances or -3 EC2 instances. Auto scaling scenario, change instance type or size of ESG instances. Launch configuration or launch template cannot be edited. Create a new version and ensure that ESG is using the new version. Terminate instances in a small group. Roll out a new security patch to ESG instances, same as above. Perform actions before an instance is added or removed. Create a lifecycle hook. You can configure CloudWatch to trigger actions based on it. Auto scaling scenarios. CloudWatch alarm. Which instance in an ESG is terminated first when a scaling happens? Within constraints, goal is to distribute instances evenly across availability zone. Next priority is to terminate older instances. Preventing frequent scale up and down. Adjust cooldown period to suit your need. Default 300 seconds. Align CloudWatch monitoring interval. I would want to protect newly launched from scaling. Enable instant scaling protection. Network load balancer function at the transport layer, layer 4 protocols, TCP, TLS, and UDP. For high performance use cases, millions of requests per second can be assigned as static IP or elastic IP, can load balance between EC2 instances, containerize applications, web application using IP address review. Elastic load balancer distribute traffic across EC2 instances in one or more availability zone in a single region. Highly available auto scales public or private. Classical load balancer not recommended by AWS, layer 4, TCP, TLS, and layer 7, HTTP and HTTPS. Network load balancer, layer 4, TCP, TLS, and UDP. Very high performance use cases can be assigned as static IP or public IP. Application load balancer works at layer 7, HTTP and HTTPS. Supports advanced routing approaches, path, host, HTTP headers, query strings and origin IP addresses. Load balance between EC2 instances, containers, IP address, and lambdas. Concepts. Each load balancer has one or more listeners, different protocol or port, listening for connection request from the client. Target group is a group representing the target, example EC2 instances. One ALB or NLB can support multiple microservices, multiple target groups. Auto scaling group, maintain configured number of instances using periodic health check. Auto scale to adjust to load. Dynamic scaling policies, target tracking scaling, simple scaling, and step scaling. CloudWatch alarms track the matrix. Is CPU utilization greater than 80% or less than 60% and trigger the auto scaling action. +5 EC2 instances or -3 EC2 instances. So now we come to EC2 and ELB for architects. It's not sufficient to get things working. We want more: high availability, high scalability, improved performance, improved security, low cost, and are the application available when the user need them? Percentage of time an application provides the operation expected of it. Example: 99.99% availability, also called 4 nines availability. Availability table: availability 99.95%, downtime in month 22 minutes, 99.9% 4 nines, 4.5 minutes. Most online app aim for 4 nines. 99.99% 5 nines, 26 seconds. Achieving 5 9 availability is tough. Deploy availability basics: EC2 and ELB. Deploy to multiple availability zones. Use cross zone load balancing. Deploy to multiple regions. Configure proper EC2 and ELB health check. Okay, so I have my in region, you have my this availability zone, I have my this availability zone, then there is elastic load balancer. Okay, a system is handling 100 transactions per second. Load is expected to increase 10 times in the next month. Can we handle a growth in users, traffic, or data size without any drop in performance? Does ability to serve more growth increase proportionally with resources? Ability to adapt to changes in demand, user data. What are the options that can be considered? Deploy to a bigger instance with bigger CPU and more memory. Increase the number of application instances and set up a load balancer and lot more. Vertical scaling: deploying application or database to bigger instances, a large hard drive, a faster CPU, more RAM, CPU, IO, or network capability. There are limits to vertical scaling. Vertical scaling for EC2 instances: T2.nano, T2.micro, T2.small, medium, large, X large, 2x large. Virtual CPU 111224448. CPU credits per hour 3, 6, 12, 24, 36, 54, 81. Memory GB 0.5, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Storage EBS. Network performance: low to moderate, low to moderate, moderate. Increasing EC2 instance size: T2 micro to T2 small, or T2 small to or. Horizontal scaling: deploying multiple instances of application and a database. Typically, but not always, originally preferred for the vertical scaling. Vertical scaling has a limit. Vertical scaling can be expensive. Horizontal increase availability. Horizontal scaling needs additional infrastructure, load balancer, extra. Horizontal scaling for EC2: distribute EC2 instances in a single availability zone, in multiple availability zone in a single region, in multiple availability zones in multiple regions. Auto scaling group: distribute load, elastic load balancer, route 53. EC2 instance family: M, M4, M5, M6, T2, T2, T3, T3A, C4, C5, C5N, R4, R5, R5A, R5N, I3, D2. Details: general purpose, balance of compute, memory, and networking. Use cases: general purpose, web servers, and code repository. If you are going for T2, bustable performance instances accumulate CPU credits when inactive. Unlimited bustable mode, new feature, workloads with spikes, web servers, developers environment, and small databases. Compute optimize, high performance processor, batch processing, high performance HTTP server, high performance computing. Memory optimize, memory cache, in memory databases. Storage: IO, NoSQL database, and data warehousing. Okay. EC2 is a G for GPU optimized, which is like floating point number calculations, and yeah, graphics processing or video compression. F1 is a FPG instance, customizable field programmable gate array. Application needing massive parallel processing power such as genomics, data analytics, video processing, and financial computing. Machine learning ASCII instance, machine learning applications such as image recognition, speech recognition, natural processing, and personalization. EC2 bustable instance: T family, T2, T3 extra. Instances gather CPU credits while they are idle. CPU credits can be consumed at a later point in time up to a maximum CPU credit. Use cases: workloads with sudden spikes, test environment. Unlimited mode: spike beyond CPU credit at additional cost. For T2 instances, unlimited mode is disabled by default. For T3 instances, unlimited mode is enabled by default. EC2 tenancy: shared versus dedicated. Shared tenancy: single host machine can have instances from multiple customer. EC2 dedicated instances: virtualized instances on hardware dedicated to one customer. You do not have visibility into the hardware of underlying host. EC2 dedicated host: physical servers dedicated to one customer. You have visibility into the hardware of underlying host, sockets, and physical cores. Use cases: regulatory needs or server bound software license like Windows Server, SQL Server. EC2 dedicated instances versus host features. Dedicated instance, dedicated host billing per instance per host, targeted instance placement, access to underlying host hardware. EC2 placement groups. Certain use cases need control over placement of a group of EC2 instances. Low latency network communication, high availability. You do not want EC2 to decide that for you. Go for EC2 placement groups. Cluster, low network latency. Spread, avoid simultaneous place of partition, multiple partition with low network latency. Certain use cases need control over placement of a group of EC2 instances. EC2 cluster placement group. When low latency network communicate between EC2 instances is critical, example big data or high performance computing needing extreme low latency, EC2 instances placed near to each other in single availability zone. High network throughput. EC2 instances can use 10 Gbps or 25 Gbps network. Disadvantage, low availability, rack crashes, all EC2 instance failure. EC2 spread placement group. Spread EC2 instance across distinct racks. Each rack has its own network and power source. Avoid simultaneous failures of EC2 instances. Can be spread across different availability zones in the same region. Maximum of 7 running instances per availability zone in a spread placement group. Isolated hardware. Okay. EC2 partition placement group use cases in large distributed and replicated workloads, SDFS, HBase, and Cassandra. EC2 instances need to be divided into multiple groups. Low latency communication between instances in a group. Each group is placed on a different rack. A partition is a group of EC2 instances. Each partition will be placed on a different rack. You can choose the partition where EC2 instances launch into, can be spread across different availability zones in same region. Maximum of 7 partition per availability zones per group. EC2 placement groups best practices. Insufficient capacity error can happen when new instances are added in. More than one instance type is used. An instance in placement group is stopped and started. If you receive a capacity error, stop and start all instances in the placement group. Try to launch the placement group again. Result, instances may be migrated to a rack that has a capacity for all requested instances. Recommendation, have only one instance type in launch request and launch all in a single launch request together. Elastic network interface, logical networking component that depends on virtual network card, supports IPv4 and IPv6. Each elastic network interface can provide one primary and multiple secondary IP addresses, one public address, one elastic IP address. Per private IPv4 address, one or more security groups. Each EC2 instance is connected to a primary network interface. You can create and attach a secondary network interface. Allows an instance to be a dual host present in 2 subnets in VPC, used to create a management network or a low budget high availability solution. Hot attach. Attaching ENI when EC2 instance is running. Attaching ENI when EC2 instance is stopped. Attaching elastic network interface at launch time of EC2 instance. EC2 pricing models overview. Price on demand, spot, reserved, saving plan. On demand request when you want it, flexible and most effective. Quote the maximum price, cheapest up to 90 but no guarantee. Reserved ahead of time up to 70% off 1 or 3 year reservation. Committing spending $X per hour on Fragate or Lambda up to 60%, no restriction. Okay. On demand resource provisioning, use and throw, high cost and high flexibility. This is what we have been using until now in the course. Idle for a web application which reserves spiky traffics. A batch program which has unpredictable runtime and cannot be interpreted. A batch program being moved from on-premise to cloud for the first time. Spot instances, old model, bid a price, highest bidder bin. New model, quote for maximum price. Price decided by long-term trends up to 90% off. Compared to on-demand can be terminated within a 2-minute notice. Idle for non-time critical workload that can tolerate interruption. A batch program that does not have a strict deadline and can be stopped at short notice and restarted. Stop or hibernate EC2 instance on receiving interruption notice. EC2 spot block and spot fleet. Spot block, request spot instances for a specific duration, 1 or 2 or 6 hours for jobs that take finite time to clock. Spot fleet, request spot instance across a range of instance time. The more instance type you spend, the better chances of having your target capacity fulfilled. Linux spot instance pricing, 0 charge if terminator start by Amazon EC2 in the first instance hour, otherwise you charge by second. If EC2 terminates spot instance after 50 minutes, you pay 0. If you terminate a spot instance after, you pay for 50 minutes. If either EC2 or you yourself terminate, you pay for 70 minutes. Spot instance can be terminated, stopped, or hibernated when interrupted. Default terminated. Use maintain option while creating spot request for stop and hibernate options. Hibernating a spot instance allow you to save state of EC2 instance and quickly start up. To completely close a spot request, cancel spot request, terminate all spot instances. Canceling a spot request might not terminate active spot instances. EC2 reserve instances. Reserve EC2 instances ahead of time. 3 types of reserve instances: standard, convertible, scheduled. Payment method: no upfront, $0 upfront, pay monthly installment, partial upfront, $XYZ upfront, pay monthly installment, all upfront, full amount upfront, $0 monthly installment. Cost where earlier you pay, more the discount. All upfront, partial upfront, no upfront, a difference up to 5%. Okay, so we'll continue in the next video. So till the time, just to stick to it and wait for the next video. Yeah, thank you.